Well, first of all, it's great to be here with you guys, and thank you for the collaborations, because if you guys follow us on social media, you'll know that this pipeline has slowed down, and if it weren't for these guys doing stuff with us, then we would have a little bit less for you. But that's because we've got some different initiatives going on. We'll talk about that a little bit. But we just had our summit together over in North Idaho.
We did. A lot of good content from that.
Yeah.
That was a good group of guys, good group of things to do, like lots of activities. We had the jiu-jitsu. We had the
grappling video you guys made.
The grappling was so sick. Yeah. I had to chop up that pre-meal stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
We got a lot of comments.
No, you got like the perfect chunk. But it was cool because that was off the cuff what that guy said. Yeah. So we were at a Taekwondo jiu-jitsu gym, and the owner of that super awesome Christian guy, not necessarily from the same theological vein as us, but we're excited for that relationship. And essentially that was just like, Christian men are called to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And of course we agree on that.
So sick. Yeah. We got a lot of comment on the Israel flags. We're like, to say like martial arts, that's what it represents.
Right. Yeah. It's Krav Maga.
Yeah. Krav Maga.
Yeah. And that's legitimately what it is. So
super cool. But so the summit, we got a lot of good content from that. We got the whole vlog from that, and then we got a bunch of like shorts that we're going to be coming out with, reels and stuff. And then, just a good time with guys.
Maybe we should put more Israel flags that way we get engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll just have to do an episode on what we actually think about Israel.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, what do you say?
So that was great. And then I'll just let you kind of like introduce yourself, like your credentials, your background, and then also like I want to know how Be Regenerated came to be.
Okay.
What was the mission behind that and where we're at today? So.
Yeah. Well, I've been in the nutrition space for about 15 years now, and I got into it of necessity because I had chronic fatigue coming out of high school, and this was kind of given a bill of dire health straits. There's nothing you could do. And wasn't necessarily interested in like the medical route anyways. My mom is a nurse, so I understand that background. And I was interested in nutrition at the time, but just didn't have any trajectory to be pointed to. It was kind of confusing, not a lot of practical application. And so this would have been back in 2007, 2008. And I ended up being discipled by a Christian guy who really broke down nutrition into the fuel for your body. So in the medical world, it's how does the body work and how do we influence that with drugs and surgery, the allopathic method. And I started to learn more about how our country is based off of really a Darwinian evolutionary, like the German medical model, and not the traditional vein of medicine, which is more holistic and all that. And there's a lot of different ways you can describe it now. So I started studying nutrition anywhere and everywhere I could. And primarily that was through the guy that had discipled me and the resources we had with the different scientists with them. But then also I took several different classes. It was kind of an interesting time. I was able to take courses through Stanford, through UCSF, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go into the field of nutrition. But then what I discovered is unless you, basically you have to get like a master's in nutrition. It's kind of like psychology. And then almost everybody that I knew that had done that was working for a pharmaceutical company or like Nestle or Frito-Lay or something, which is not nutrition. Right. So that I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I always had a goal to not get into debt to go to school.
Okay.
So I did junior college. I did a gap year program. That's where I met this guy. And I was kind of like the pit of my chronic fatigue was at a really cool program up in the mountains in the high Sierras. And during that time, we were just eating like grade F Cisco food. So I got sicker and sicker during that. Had like a chronic cold, started to get like bad sinus infection. My fatigue just went through the roof. So I was really hungry and asking the Lord to help provide me some relief because I knew it wasn't supposed to be that way. If I want to start a family and I want to start a vocation, then I need to have good energy. And I backed out of going into the Air Force because I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do in spite of my good test scores because of my chronic fatigue that I've been diagnosed with. And now it was even worse. So I got into nutrition of necessity for that reason. Yeah. I had some experience with like fresh fruit and vegetable juicing and just eating a little better, but there were so many things that I didn't know. And thankfully, in God's providence, he brought a guy into my life that just started me with the foundations, which is what are the nutrients that fuel the body? So what makes the body work? You can know how the body works and how to influence it, but you need to know what makes it work. And I realized that the medical field doesn't offer that. In fact, they suppress that because if you know what makes your body work and then how to regenerate it naturally, then you really don't, you can eliminate symptoms as they come along.
Because they're mostly dealing with the symptoms. They're not dealing with the root cause of things. They're addressing symptoms.
Totally. It's reactive and not proactive.
Yeah.
So I used to say a lot more, we focus on proactive health, proactive medicine, but a better way to think about it is regenerative health. So giving your body the building materials that it needs to regenerate itself. And it's doing that constantly. Right now, while we're sitting here, your body's doing that.
Yep.
So understanding it from that perspective, and then realizing that the foundation of that is eating the original foods as close to how God made them or how he designed them to be eaten in the forms that he made them as possible.
Right.
So getting back to heirloom stuff, moving away from pesticides, chemicals, all of that. So as I started to pull the junk out and just eat real food, then my health started to improve. But in particular, I started to supplement with concentrated nutrients of the foods that are really difficult to get even in our day and age. So when people typically start eating whole food, it's like fruits and vegetables and meat, right? The current trend, I've been through multiple trends at this point, but the current trend would be like carnivore.
Okay.
A little bit before that was like keto and then vegetarian. And all of those are kind of reactive responses to different things. And there's valid reasons to try some of those different ones. But people will start eating, meat and fruit because that's like the easiest thing to go for. And those are really good. Protein and antioxidants, I would say focus on those two first. However, there are a lot of nutrients that come from foods that people were eating for thousands of years with no problems, like grains, that are critical for every cell in your body. And they only come in those foods. So for example, I started supplementing with concentrated healthy fats, the essential fats from grains. And those are the ones that nobody knows about. Yeah. People know about omega-3s. They know about, saturated fats from animal products. And so my fatigue went away. Turns out that was all based on clinical evidence and nutraceuticals. So then I started looking at, okay, how do I work myself through school and do nutrition, not only as a business, but then I learned more and I was able to start doing that. And essentially I just worked myself into what I'm doing now, doing regenerative health coaching and nutrition, and decided not to go the route of like naturopathic, because it wasn't really that also was not well defined at the time. If most people have been to like a naturopath, you're gonna get so many different varieties and flavors and modalities, and basically like it's like the supplements they use are gonna just be whatever they found and they marketed. Similar to how a doctor just gets certain drugs that people come along or the current companies that are marketing drugs, vaccines, whatever it are, they come and they sell that to the doctors and the hospitals. And tell them what types of kickbacks they're going to get. And then that's the current thing. And if it doesn't, kill too many people and doesn't have too many side effects, then, then it'll stick around. And
that's a good way to address health. If how many people doesn't kill.
Right. I think it's hilarious that you watch a pharmaceutical ad, which we're still bombarded with, one of like 2 countries that does that. And they always say side effects include death. I'm like, who died? And it's still...
it's like depression and death.
Why would I ever do that? So it's. And what's cool is people are waking up to this. Back, 15 years ago, organic was kind of just becoming a thing, which just used to be how our, great-grandparents grew everything. And health and nutrition, you had to get people interested in reading labels. Now the monkey's out of the bottle. Everybody is reading labels. Everybody is researching things. And to some degree, there's so much misinformation out there, which is why there's all these wild swings when it comes to fad diets and supplements. There's always a new thing. And so what we're trying to do is really help people stay grounded in having guidelines and understanding what biblical nutrition is, so that when these fads and these different things come along, you can rightly interpret if they're actually going to be helpful for you, because everybody's trying to sell something, and that's not bad. If what you're selling is good, and you can prove it. And so our other component that we really like is third party, third party verification, third party research. And even if that means this is a friend of mine that doesn't have financial buy-in, and had results, so that helps.
So Be Regenerated kind of started from like your own findings as you went through life addressing this chronic fatigue. And so then did Be Regenerated start out as like a let me teach some guys about nutrition? Yeah.
Well, I just started doing nutritional workshops, and then I certainly was recommending to people to use the same supplements and nutrients that I did, but it never was about supplements by themselves. It was where is it more cost effective to supplement than it is to necessarily eat those things. So for example, if you need the healthy fats from whole grains, but you don't want the carbohydrates that come with it, or if you have like a gluten problem, then you can get those in a supplement form, and then you can primarily just eat protein.
Gotcha.
So you're not sacrificing other nutrient families, but you're still able to focus on the macros that you want to. And then also just teaching people how to shop beyond organic, how to get the pesticides off their food, because even organic stuff has pesticides on it. So we started doing nutrition workshops in people's homes. I've done tons of them for churches. In fact, I've got to do workshops at several different universities that I was invited to speak at. And so over time, I interned under a guy who is one of the top clinical nutritionists in the world, and was potentially considering going into that field. But then again, I decided like really what people need is they don't need another like lone expert. They need coaching, and we need to be able to bring this down to the level where the average person can just cut through the confusion and go to the clarity. So Be Regenerated on the nutritional standpoint came from my desire to work on that. But as far as where we are now as a company, I had the idea for like 8 years and even the name and everything like that. But I did not want to do it alone. I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And I think people are tired of what Jeremiah said, the Lone Ranger, right? Not Jeremiah from the Bible, but you need to go listen to the Brutal Christian Leadership Talk.
Yes, that was great.
Which was at our summit, right?
Yep.
And the lone guru is what I call him. So you've got so many different podcasters and nutritionists, and essentially they're an expert in this thing. And it's almost the same as the medical world, where you have, a doctor who's a urologist and then a neurologist and all these different things. And they're not actually allowed to talk about the other fields or work in the other fields. They have to think about their one thing. And so it's this, what would you call it? Compartmentalization and separation of something that's actually a whole.
Yeah.
So we talk about being anti-Gnostic, meaning that God's design and human beings are spirit and flesh together. And that's how it was before death entered. Right. And that's what it's going to be eternally, right? So when we're trying to approach health, we want to be non-Gnostic. And when it comes to Christians, why we decided to really focus on having a Christian perspective on health and nutrition is because the Bible is offering and is explaining that reality. That's where truth comes from. And the Bible tells us even what types of foods we should be eating and what the definition of food is. So this is all stuff we've obviously broken down on the podcast and are going to continue to do. But as the Be Regenerated came to be, we decided, who do we need to focus on first? Men. Why men? Because typically if you win the man, you win the family. But we're not only focused on families, we're focused on young men. Men who are not yet married, maybe men who are not yet believers. And who want to stop seeing everything be hyper academic and effeminate and all pie in the sky, thinking and talking. We want to see guys doing things, putting it into action.
I think that's the neat thing about Be Regenerated, because when I first met you guys at Fight Left Feast and found out about what you were doing, in my mind, it like triggered the whole Fight Club thing. Like a group of guys like set like little, what do you guys call them now? Chapters. Across the nation. And it's like, I think that's one of the key components about Be Regenerated that I love so much is that you have the group aspect of it. Wherever you're at, you have it obviously online and in the school app that you guys are in, but also like across different states. Like you're bringing men together that they can be encouraged by each other, because we have this lone wolf mentality in our modern world where these guys will find truth, but then they'll be chasing after like the Nick Fuentes types, and they're just on their Instagram watching Nick Fuentes.
Well, it's personality driven, which is a problem in every sphere. And first of all guys have flaws. They're going to have massive strengths and massive weaknesses. And when you get a group of guys together in a brotherhood and you have a team, then you have guys that are specialists. And so what happens is this guy has strengths that this guy doesn't have. And so you come together. And what I realized is I want to put together a team, but what are the things that we should focus on? We want to focus on nutrition and fitness. And there's other aspects of health that kind of come along with that. But how can we really give people an unashamedly masculine and unapologetically biblical perspective on nutrition and fitness? Why those things are not only justifiable. It's crazy because for a long time in Christianity and in normie Eva theology, it's like, oh, well, that's nice that you're into fitness and health, and that's great, but it doesn't matter because we're going to die and these bodies don't matter, and that's all a lie. Right. That's from the enemy. He wants us to think that, because if you have that mentality, then you are weak in your capacity to carry out the mandate, the dominion mandate, and the Great Commission. If you don't have energy, then you can't serve God with everything that you have, and you can't give your family your best. So it absolutely impacts that, which is why the Bible is very concerned and gives us all kinds of practical instructions and tells us what food is, what we should be doing. So the classic example is, I've heard it said, well, physical discipline profits little and spiritual is much. And people use that as a justification to say the spiritual is the only thing that matters. And that's not the correct interpretation. What Paul is saying is, look at how much physical discipline matters. And he gives so many different metaphors. He talks about the men in the gymnasium. He talks about Olympians. He says the runners who run the race. He's using these analogies, just like the Bible is chock full of analogies of farming and agriculture and shepherding, because that's the world. That's the reality of the world. Until very recently, most people were doing those things. And so he's saying, look at the athlete and consider how beneficial that is. And then, of course, how much more infinitely beneficial the things that are eternal. But since we are not only spiritual, the physical impacts the spiritual eternally. And again, we're going to be given new bodies. So one of the motivations is, if you're going to be given a new body, then how you treat this one is probably going to be determining some of your rewards.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things you said, the Bible tells us how to eat. Could you give like just like one example of like where we could see that in scripture? Like what, like how does the Bible tell us to eat?
Yeah, great point. Well, I would start off by saying the Bible tells us not to be gluttonous.
Yep.
And it says honey is a good thing, but too much of it is bad.
Yep.
So I think so many people in nutrition are focused on what they have to avoid. And that is an important component. You can't just build your faith on, oh, these are just things that I'm doing and I don't have to worry about, avoiding certain things. The Bible commands us, Christ commands us to avoid specific things, flee from sexual immorality, just run away from it. And even to avoid bad company, right? Because it can corrupt who you are. But so many people have this restrictive view of nutrition that it's all these things that I can't have and I can't do not taste, do not touch. And Paul says that's of little value.
Yeah.
God is so abundant in what he's given us. And because we have grown up in this artificial world where we're so removed from fresh and real food, most people don't know what a tomato or an orange picked straight from the vine or the tree tastes like.
Right.
They just experience what they get on, a conventional burger or something like that.
Yeah.
And so people are starting to realize that more. You go to the farmer's market and you taste the freshness there. And so consider that God put man in the garden. What I would say is God has given us the full spectrum of foods to eat. And the mentality of constantly restricting those things to only meat or only vegetables is missing the point.
Yep.
And most likely your health struggle is not because you need to avoid an entire food group. It's because you need to eat the original thing and you need to eat it free from the degradation that comes with it being, hyper preserved or, picked a long time ago out of season, or not grown for nutrition.
Yeah.
You need to get back to the healthiest thing possible. And when you do that, there's great rewards in it. The analogy that I'd use is the intimacy, the sexual intimacy that a husband and wife get to enjoy their whole life and the gift that God gives them for just them two and how rich and beautiful that is way beyond anything that the world tries to convince us is great, which is multiple partners and, just do whatever you want. And it actually becomes worse and worse over time and it destroys you.
Yep.
But the good thing produces more life and more pleasure.
Yep.
God has put those two things together. So if you can look at nutrition as something that God has provided for abundance and that he's given us this whole table to eat from, right? He's given us the bread and the wine, and those are both important components. So that's kind of a high level of what I would say the Bible commands us to do. I'll give you another example. We should eat fruits and vegetables. We should eat vegetables. A really popular thing, carnivore being the current trend, is that vegetables are useless and they're bad for you. That's obviously not true. Right. And God, and vegetables in the Genesis account actually would even include grains and things that are grown on the vine. And these are things that weren't originally in the garden, but God intended for man to expand out and to cultivate and to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay. So how does Be Regenerated address, and what is your thought process on biblical masculinity, specifically when it comes to fitness and nutrition? Because we can look at the modern day, when you say masculine, a lot of young guys are going to think of, the Arnolds, the big jacked guy screaming in the gym, lifting weights. And that's, that aggression is one aspect of masculinity. Obviously not in every form that we're thinking of in that way, but what would you say, for fitness and nutrition, would be a good way to think about that, specifically biblically masculine?
There's two, I would say, false or faux bravados of masculinity that are out there right now. One is the kind of the aggressive, edgelord, verbal side of it. So we could take a Nick Fuentes or an Andrew Tate, and Tate kind of embodies both. And those are naturally appealing things. Those are good things. Those are what somebody like Stephen Wolf would call martial virtues. And those, I'm convinced more and more, are prior to the fall. They're not a result of sin.
Okay.
Martial virtue and the fighting spirit, that aspect of masculinity is not a reaction that God has put into creation because of sin. It's actually something that was there before, because when Adam's kicked out of the garden, who does God post up to keep them from going back?
Yeah, the angel.
Right.
Sword,
And if God has a warrior nature and he's a jealous God and he fights for his people and he's perfect and good and sinless and holy, then that was something that was part of his character before that. Adam should have defended Eve from the dragon from the beginning, right? So that's one aspect of the revelation. The other component is the false bravado is just size and everything you see on the outside. And we could look at David for this example, right? They look at him as a young man, as a kid, and no one believed that he could do what he did physically.
Right.
Now, clearly David had physical prowess, but it wasn't visible on the nose. He was trained out in the field, much of it by himself, defending the sheep.
Yep.
And he was able to take down a giant with that. And so God says he does not look at the outside like man does, but he looks at the heart. Now, that doesn't mean that the outside doesn't matter. I love, Alexander has coined this phrase, Iron Bison, he's one of our guys, that and to embody your ethos.
Yep.
And you can embody it to the degree that God has given you the capacity to embody it. You know, I'm not 6 foot something, corn-fed white boy like Alex. So I'm never gonna be able to deadlift as much as he can, but I can certainly increase my deadlift capacity following his tools and standards.
Yeah.
Right. So on one side, you can look big and you can look great, but your kidneys can be destroyed. The amount of guys who got into weightlifting that I know out of high school and powerlifting, that their kidneys are shot because they've consumed so many junk proteins is crazy. Like the kidney wait list for guys who are bodybuilders is almost similar to people that are diabetic, which is nuts.
Yeah.
It's a huge epidemic. And that was something that I was studying when I was in California. It was a big problem.
Okay.
So you can have somebody that looks really good and has a lot of muscles, but they're not mobile. They would get hurt if they played with their kids in certain awkward positions. They wouldn't be able to move quickly.
Yep.
And their internal organs, the longevity of those is failing.
Yep.
So what needs to power that is real food.
Yeah.
And then on the kind of the verbal side of it, the aggression that's there, that should also be backed up by physical prowess. You can't just talk tough.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be tough physically. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's why Mount Athos Performance and Be Regenerated are working so well together. And what we're doing is just that, like, you guys have really capitalized on, like, let's get this information out to these guys. And we're generating these groups of men together to encourage each other and grow together in education and fitness and nutrition and all that type of thing. But then we also have Mount Athos here. What we're trying to do is provide guys with that longevity mindset with, supplements.
Yeah.
We're not,
it's in the very name, right? Like the Greco-Roman aesthetic.
Yeah. That's what
Stoicism is kind of making a comeback, right?
Yeah. So I tell people this when I talk about Mount Athos is, so you had Paul in Acts 17, he's going to the Greeks, and the Greeks had all these great ideas of excellence, and we need to be living morally, and he talks to them, he says, hey, look at how religious you guys are. You guys are trying to be good. But look at this unknown God. I'm here to tell you about him because he is why we're doing these things.
Yeah.
That's the root of excellence. That's why we have the Mount Athos namesake. It's culturally relevant historically for Christianity, but we wanted to tie that, like, the Greeks had all this physical ideas about physical and moral goals for excellence, but they weren't tying it to a why. They didn't have a why. And so Paul is coming and telling them, hey, this is the why. You're excellent for this cause.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And he was tapping into that.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying, no, ignore that.
Right.
He was saying, hey, this is good. Just like when he goes and he points out the pantheon of gods, he's like, hey, there's an unnamed God here.
Yep.
He's coming in through that avenue. So that's one of the reasons I love nutrition, is because from an evangelistic standpoint, just doing what I've done for a long time, the amount of people that I've been able to counsel on the spiritual level, because when someone opens up to you their intimate health issues, and I'm not a doctor, I don't treat disease and all of that, but you can look at the spiritual roots of disease, and you can see that in their physical being and in their relationships. And they open these things up to you, and that allows you to counsel and then to bring the gospel and the truth into that, which is your body is designed to heal itself. You just need to give it what it needs to be able to do that. Talking about the kind of the Greek aesthetic there, it's important because the New Testament was introduced into the Greek world.
Right.
Christ came on the scene at that time, and it was written in the Greek language. God chose that medium and that means to communicate this to us. So we can often miss that because we're reading it in English.
Yeah.
We're coming at it from perspective of modernity, postmodern, and secularism, and we don't understand how much that has influenced our thinking. So to tie that in with Be Regenerated and why we're partnered with you guys at Athos is the 3 problems we've identified are too much information, this overwhelm, distraction as a result of that, and also as a result of lack of self-discipline, because guys don't know what to aim at and to just focus on doing on the basic level.
Yeah.
They're bombarded with a lot of information, and we conflate hearing a lot with doing.
Yep.
I'm going to consume this podcast that's telling me how to be a man, therefore I'm a man.
Right.
And when I look at a guy like Nick Fuentes, what I see is a lot of potential to be a great man, incredible oratory gifts. However, he's not a husband and a father.
Right.
So there are the majority of elements of manhood that I need to learn from and that I should be under the authority of are not existent in this guy. And that's actually a reason that he has a significant amount of flaws. He has your weaknesses, are always going to be the things that weaken your greatest strengths.
Yeah.
So your greatest strengths come with these paradoxical, or what would you say, like polar opposite weaknesses that weaken your strengths. So you need to work on the weaknesses that weaken your strengths. You need to identify those. And where there's sin, whether it's sin that's been long rooted in your family or is something that's a result of long periods of self-discipline, lack of self-discipline in your life, or just ignorance, you need to kill those and you need to change those things. And that's what we're trying to get guys to do. So we've got too much information, distraction, but the third component is isolation. Yeah. Guys are isolated. So many men are pursuing health and nutrition from this island instead of looking at it of the perspective of multi-generationalism. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have a family, there was a study that came out recently, you probably saw this, how your consistency in exercise influences your children, and it's invisible in your sperm.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing.
But it's not a difficult concept to grasp when you think of the quality of the seed being sown is going to be determined by how healthy the tree is, or the plant.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's amazing. You're keying in on it there. The aggression and like how attractive it is for these young guys that are coming out of this, this woke mindset, and they're seeing a guy like Nick Fuentes that has this aggression, and he's going against everything that's been a lie in our culture, and they're like, okay, I like this, but
he's over the target.
Yeah, and there's a failure to think past that though. Yeah, because that is a period in a man's life where he needs to establish himself against the things that are wrong and that are going on. But then he's like, okay, well, I've now adapted. I've now changed from my mindset, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be standing for the things that I believe in. But you can't just rage against the machine. There's no.
You're not going to defeat the machine by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the Lone Ranger doesn't defeat the machine.
And that's where the family and just like the legacy and the longevity mindset of this, like you need generations of your family doing this. You can't do it alone. You're not going to.
You're disposable for the kingdom. You're dispensable. And you are going to die.
Yeah.
You have to pass on a physical legacy.
Yeah.
That's going to be embodied in your children. So when we were talking about gravitas a little bit earlier, and there's a level of gravitas and strength that guys like Alex or Tate or even yourself embody that I don't. And there are other guys that I look at, like a Brian Sauvé, who certainly is working on those aspects and has those aspects, but he has so much gravitas when it comes to being a husband and a father. Yeah. The dads in my church who have 4+ kids and I have 4 sons, for example. There's something that I'm going to be able to learn from a man that has more sons than me that I won't be able to learn from a guy that has 1 or 2 sons.
Right.
And the gravitas that he brings to the table because of his patriarchal weight is different.
Yeah.
So this is why it's important to have multiple guys in a team and a brotherhood together, because when you combine those different skills, this is really the guys that we follow, guys like New Christendom, the reason that they're so efficient and productive and are such a force of nature right now, of God's nature, is because they're working together with different groups as a team.
Yeah.
And using those different skills and combining those together. And they're over the target of so many different areas.
Yeah.
So with Be Regenerated, we want to deal with each of those issues. The distraction, the overwhelm of information, which leads to stagnancy, or it could lead to just depression. There's a lot of different things. A good analogy for that is the Dead Sea. I've been there. I've been to Israel. It's actually pretty epic.
Yeah,
and we spent most of our time out in the wilderness where Christ went, where the Israelites wandered, or where battles were fought, and some of the most intimate encounters with God happened. And you're out there, and the Dead Sea has this crazy inflow of fresh water, like the springs of En-Gedi. and all this stuff that you read about in the text. And there's no outflow. So what happens is all this fresh water goes into it, and it's like the saltiest body of water on earth, and only a couple bacteria can survive in it because the water's not moving from one place to another. And so it becomes stagnant. And if you're just watching endless amounts of podcasts and you're getting, even on the nutrition front, I did this for a number of years, and on the same thing on the theology front, tons of input of all these different things. And yeah, it's great to be post-mill, it's great to be reformed and all of that. But if you don't have this outflow of application in your own life, then you don't have authority.
Yep.
And then if it doesn't work into the physical world that you're building, that God is having you build with other men and with your family, then again, it's not really benefiting Christendom.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're focusing on three things. We're helping you clarify what you need to focus on right now when it comes to fitness, diet, and honing in, if you're taking supplements, for example, it's really hard to know where to start. What should you be doing?
Yep.
So how about you just start trying to get all of the amino acids? We were talking about that earlier, right? And get good whole foods that are in your local area, that are seasonal. And then when it comes to the isolation component, if you are in a focused group of guys that are aiming at getting things done, then that eliminates the distraction. But the isolation has to be dealt with through fraternity.
Yep.
This is something that Michael Foster talks about in his book, It's Good to Be a Man.
Yep.
There's a whole chapter on fraternity in there. We definitely recommend it. We'll probably read the book in the Brotherhood at some point.
Sweet.
And the isolationism is something that has to change.
Yeah.
So when I look at a guy like Nick Fuentes, he's vulnerable to a lot of attacks and a lot of errors in his gifting of oration because he's not part of a team.
Yeah.
He claims to have a lot of people on his team, and I'm sure he does. A lot of people are listening and really like his ideas, but the execution is where we really struggle as conservatives, as Christians. And so what we're wanting to do is look at men who have authority, and we want to put these things in action. And specifically, we're trying to focus on fitness, nutrition, and then everyday wisdom. So of course that naturally lends to guys talking about things like family worship or starting a homestead.
Right.
We're really into getting people to start doing some regenerative agriculture and growing things in their own home. What type of sport should your son do? We have a lot of these discussions in the group. How about like wrestling and jujitsu? Because that has a lot more utility in your son's life in an increasingly violent and dangerous world compared to something like baseball. Right.
Yep.
So those are the three things that we're going after with the Brotherhood. And you talked about the IRL component.
Yep.
So we call it the Brotherhood IRL. Yep. That is the offline aspect of what we're doing, because it's not enough to have a place where you just talk about things.
Yeah.
You have to be doing things, and you have to just be doing them with other guys.
Yeah.
Until you get your hands in the dirt with another guy who is gifted differently than you and is more proficient than you, or even if you're more proficient than him, your ability to teach him things or have him catch things, not just by you hearing them, but by doing them, completely changes the dynamic.
Right.
And this is how God designed the world to work. That's why it's bad that little boys spend so much time sitting in a classroom in a school that's really just like a prison, instead of out in the yard building and doing things.
Yeah.
They used to be with their dads on the farm or being apprenticed in different trades. So we need to be hands-on doing things together. So this is why when we meet up, we lift weights, we go on hikes, we do difficult things. And even this last time, we got to cut stone. Literally cut limestone.
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty sweet.
It was really cool. So there's so many guys that are really excelling in their different areas. And what we're doing is we're establishing regional chapters, and those chapters are going to be made up of local cohorts. A local cohort would be a group of guys at a church or a handful of churches in an area. For example, there's several churches that are aligned in our area, a Reformed Baptist, even some guys from Eastern Orthodox and like Trad Catholic churches and our CREC churches, where we're working out together, we're doing book studies together, we're having Sabbath dinners together, we're taking our kids rock climbing together, and we're growing food together.
Yeah, I think that's super awesome. I think, I don't know, I grew up independent fundamental Baptist. We weren't independent fundamental Baptist, but we went to independent fundamental Baptist churches, and just that, like, the isolated mindset coming into the CREC and seeing like all of these different groups of men come together and then be able to use their skills. Like, we're not agreeing on everything. Yeah. But like, we're obviously trying to the Eastern
you don't have to agree on all the finer points.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can you just agree that we need to take some level of control of our family's food security?
Yeah.
Because we don't have food security in our country, which is crazy.
Yeah.
We have the most navigable riverways in the world. We have still to this day, Washington State has the best topsoil in all the United States. perhaps in the world, right?
Jeez.
I think one of the other healthiest soils in the world to grow things is in Ukraine. So it's not a coincidence that the war in Ukraine happened and there's all these multinational companies that are trying to go in after it and take over all that farmland. That's, they've just wiped out the entire male farming population. It's ripe for all this industrial agriculture.
Yeah.
And that used to be the United States.
Yep. Yeah. So what would you say for somebody that's listening right now, like the best way for them to get engaged? I mean, we could talk briefly real quick. Like, how do you approach your nutrition and fitness? Like, what's just like a daily thing that you would be focusing on? And this is going to be obviously specific to you. Okay. But like something that a young man or a man who's just starting and his coming to knowledge of fitness and nutrition, how do you approach it personally? And I'll briefly talk about mine as well.
Yeah, our current roadmap, and we're laying this out in our online community and then carrying it out in bi-weekly group coaching calls, depending on what level you join, what tier you join at. But the roadmap that I've really dialed in is there's body composition, testosterone. So getting and that's not the only hormone. Really, you need to get all your hormones in line. Your body's making those if you're getting all the right nutrients so that it can build those healthy hormones, which is primarily healthy fats, specifically from grains, but then also getting all the amino acids. So getting those two things in line, body composition, that is your ratio of muscle and fat in your body. And of course, you have bone, you have water. You can easily get a scale on Amazon or something that tells you those numbers. And you can go to a place and do an in-body scan, or you can do like a DEXA scan and get more detailed information. But if you can figure out, and this is something that we help guys do, if you can figure out really what's your metabolism, how can you do some metabolism-based eating? And it's not crazy complex. And then how can you get your body composition in line with how God made you? So for example, the way that you're set up is different from your brother Desmond, right? Yeah. God gave you guys different bodies. And so you have to take dominion over that and increase your capacity and your energy. So body composition, we call it testosterone regeneration. And we're really focused on natural testosterone regeneration. Yep. There's a lot of different theories and things that people can do. There's synthetic, there's the natural version. And the natural version is simply just making sure that you have all those nutritional building blocks. And perhaps for a time, some of that could be stimulated by other things. But we like to focus on natural compounds that increase stimulation. So we talked about like ashwagandha or ginseng. Right. Just making sure you get enough minerals. The mineral depletion in men and just in our food in general, even if you're eating fruits and vegetables and organic stuff, is off the charts. Right. So you really can't have too many good minerals. So we help guys foundationally make sure they're getting all those. And the cool thing about supplementation, if you're getting from a good company like Athos and some of the other clinical nutrition companies we work with, is you can know 100%, and it's from food, 100% that you're getting those things. So I like to know that my sons are getting their core nutrients every day, and I'm not going to leave that to chance, hoping that it's in the food that we're eating and the eggs that we're getting at the store. Now, we get really good eggs. We buy, we get a farm box every week from our regenerative farm that's seasonal, and we know that it's packed with nutrients. We know that they even test the soil, but the precise amounts aren't necessarily there. And we just live in the most blessed time in history to be able to be precise with your nutrition. So there's no reason that we should all be as sick as we are. Yeah. So for me on a daily basis, I like to make sure I'm getting all the amino acids in at least one of my meals a day. So that typically looks like a protein shake for me with something that's really complete. Yep. Some of the ways you could do that with food would be like raw milk and eggs. Okay. I don't personally like slonking eggs, and I want to get more of the amino acids that would be more on like the milk side. There are other good plant-based foods that have a lot of amino acids as well. So I think we don't want to bulk at those. We want to, again, look at the whole thing that God has given us. So I make sure I do that. Fiber is also a really important group that's often left out in the carnivore field. And the reason that that's important, if you look at something like Ozempic, hugely popular drug. And why is it popular? Because it's kind of like a get-rich-quick scheme for weight loss. Yeah. But it has major side effects. Now, there are bacteria and hormones in your gut that your body can make if it gets just a few of the right types of fiber and healthy bacteria, which normally would have been in people's diets through the different fermented foods that they're eating, depending on their region that they're living in, and the types of whole grains that they would have been eating, and fruits and vegetables. And because we're not eating any of those heirloom foods anymore, we really don't eat many fermented foods at all in the United States compared to other cultures. Our guts are just jacked up. Right. So you can actually, for really inexpensive, supplement-wise, you can give your body the exact right types of fibers to trigger the same hormones in your gut for like pennies. Really? Compared to something like Ozempic, and your body will naturally be satiated and it will balance itself out. So there's something called homeostasis, which is when your body is getting the nutrients that it needs And on the supplement side, you can make sure your body is getting the full range of nutrients and you can minimize calories. In the modern world, that's our challenge. We, within the last 50 to 100 years, went from the average amount of steps that someone was walking a day because everybody was working physical jobs. And most people in history, you know what the most common occupation has been?
Farming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like most people had to be out growing the food, you know, think of like a medieval society. How many knights and kings did you have compared to the amount of people that were farmers? So because that's changed and like less than 2% of the population in the modern world are farmers, we're not having to do all that physical work. We're not walking to, one of the simplest things you could do. I love that Alex hits on this all the time is just walk 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
Because the current data shows that 6,000 is about the right amount.
Right.
And if you're doing those things that people just used to do without thinking, then your body will get into what's called homeostasis. So I focus on high protein and high antioxidants. That's the other component that I think a lot of people miss. And you'll hear this from guys that get on the carnivore program, for example. They'll experience weight loss, they'll experience a lot of results, but they'll typically hit this plateau, both in their weight loss, depending on how oversized they were, how much fat they were carrying, and also on their hormones. Typically, hormones will just tank and testosterone will also go down because they're missing so many of those foundational nutrients that their body also needs to build those. Saturated fats are good, but you have to have healthy unsaturated fats for your body to properly get rid of them and to not be a negative benefit on you, to have energy. So that's why you eat all of the whole food chain, right? So I like to focus on all 22 amino acids, getting all 5 families of fiber, and then eating a variety of fruits and vegetables that are seasonal and that are beyond organic, ideally from a regenerative farm. But you can just look at the clean 15 and the dirty dozen list, making sure the pesticides are removed from those if you don't know who's growing them. Yeah. And then I like to focus on eating things that are cooked from scratch at home. So I'm super blessed. My wife is at home and she loves to cook. She loves to bake. I bought her a grain mill so that she can make things from whole grains. And it really isn't a lot of extra work. People will say, having kids is so expensive and so much work, or, doing all this, I just don't have time for all that. And honestly, this day and age, especially with the cost of eating out at a restaurant or buying things, like buying pre-cut fruits and vegetables is not doing that is a life hack. And that sounds silly because you're like, well, I should be eating more fruits and vegetables. I'll just go to the store and buy the plastic container that has the cut up stuff. Well, when was that cut up? It was probably cut up on a plastic cutting board. So you're getting all these microplastics in your diet. As soon as things are cut up, and fruits and vegetables, in particular antioxidants, as soon as they're exposed to oxygen and light and they're damaged, then they start losing their most valuable components right away. Yeah. So in many respects, I supplement with those things because they're so volatile. Yep. And then when I'm choosing my foods, I try to eat as many of them as possible. So typically my breakfast will look like something really high protein. We'll eat a lot of eggs. My wife sometimes will malto meal, cream of wheat. We grew up on that as kids. Yep. She'll literally grind that out of the mill, and it's an electric stone mill. Yeah. It does it in just a few seconds, and then she'll make it. And how filling it is, you don't have a sugar spike. It's incredible, and you can add protein to that. Yep. So I typically base that depending on what my activity is going to be that day. Okay. So if I'm mostly going to be doing strength training and doing something like what we're doing today, doing a podcast or sitting on my computer doing work, then on those days I'm going to focus more on protein. Yeah. And then things with high fiber content, because those are the two things that satiate you, fiber and protein. On a day where I'm going to be doing more physical activity and where I'm going to be, let's say, doing some running or something like that, then I'll typically have more carbs. Right. But I like to have complex carbs and I like to eat the whole grain. That's really important. Okay. So that's typically my approach. High protein, high antioxidant. And I don't stress out too much about macros. It's really helpful to track those things for a season. So when guys are doing our body composition program, we give them free access to, I think it's the best app out there to help look at not only their macronutrients, but their micronutrients. And you can simply scan the food or the different supplements. I put the Athos supplements in there, the other stuff that we use, they're all in there. So guys can know that they're hitting all of their micronutrients that they need, but then that they can see, okay, I went way over on my fats today. Right. And how did I do that? Well, I went out to coffee and I had like a bagel and something just blew that out of the water. Right. So you can really figure out where you're shooting yourself in the foot. And a lot of guys are doing that, not knowing it. They stop by the Quickie Mart and they get some junk stuff. Yeah. And they're justifying it to themselves saying, I just went to McDonald's once, or I just did this. But you can't over-exercise the amount of calories that's in there. Right. And if you're sitting in your truck all day, or you're sitting in the office, or if you're just not doing labor-intensive work like most humans were designed to do, God made our bodies to move, then you're just not going to dig yourself out of that hole quickly. So you need to really be on track of that. And you can pretty quickly get into a routine where you know what you're doing and you don't have to obsess over the minor details because they become habits. So we're trying to form habits. What we do in the Brotherhood is we help guys track 7 daily habits. So that's going to be on the food front. It's going to be nutrition, which is what am I putting in? How many grams of protein am I aiming for? And what is my ratio of fat and carbs and all that kind of stuff? If you have a caloric deficit and you're eating high protein and you're getting all your other nutrients, your body will really quickly burn fat and build muscle by default.
Yep.
And a lot of guys think they have to eat like a gram of protein per pound of body weight. They have to eat huge amounts of meat and beef and all this kind of stuff. And we've been seeing guys that are just getting like 70 to 80% of that, but because the protein quality that they're eating is so high, and then they are building muscle.
Yeah.
They're packing on really quickly.
Right.
So that's the body composition aspect. The testosterone aspect is a little bit more niche with supplements and making sure you avoid certain things. And we can help guys dial that in. Like we have this blueprint, a regeneration blueprint. It's 2 pages. You fill that out. And the important part of that is that actually you take a real life inventory of your habits, what nutrients you're eating, where you have injuries or anything like that. But then you actually set a vision for yourself. Okay, over the next 3 months, if I had more energy for my family, how would that change my life? How would that change my family's life? And how would that honor the Lord?
Yeah.
So just setting a little vision for yourself and just stick that in front of you and then work on that for the next 3 months. So if you work for 3 months on your body composition, do some basic strength training 3 to 4 days a week, and you're minding what's going into your body. If you're eating clean, so for me, eating clean, that looks like eating 90% whole foods from scratch at home, good quality supplements, avoiding all the junk. But then I don't stress out when I go to fellowship meal at church,
right,
or when I go to a whiskey night at my buddy's house. I'm not doing that every night.
Right.
And it's a habit of mine to not eat fast food and not eat junk. Yep. I just don't spend money on things that are overpriced, that don't deliver me good nutrition.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's awesome. I think the protein thing for me and the antioxidants, I had like a year and a half ago, personal experience where I was following the, what do you call it? The fasting, intermittent fasting.
Okay.
So I was doing intermittent fasting. I was
time restricted feeding. You had like a window where you would eat.
Yeah. But I did that for, probably a year. And I went and I was working out hard and I was probably, 10% body fat. But then I went and got my testosterone checked and it was like in the 300s. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm doing everything right.
As recently as the 80s, guys were like 800 plus.
Yeah. And then I started, I got a coach and I started just eating more. And I increased my activity level to like kind of compensate for like how much more I was eating.
Would that be like a combination of strength and other types of training? So jiu-jitsu as well?
Yeah. So I was staying super active with, my lifting. So that was, but that's, if you're doing an hour lift, you're not burning that many calories in that hour. Like your muscles are going to grow, but it's not like a calorie intensive.
But lifting really pays off when you're not exercising, because when you do strength training, then when we're doing what we're doing right now, then you're burning more calories.
Yep. Your muscle is going to be burning more calories. Yeah. But I just started eating more and I started increasing, my, just like cardio work. So Stairmaster, making sure I was getting 10 to 12,000 steps a day, that type of thing. And I went and got it checked like 3 months later. And I was, like 1,100. Wow. And like so much so that it was such a short amount of time that had changed that my doctor was like, dude, did you hop on testosterone? Like, what's going on here?
You didn't?
Like, no, I didn't. Yeah. I just started eating a lot more protein because in that calorie deficit, you're eating like the intermittent fasting.
And what types of protein were you eating?
So I would, before or after? Before I was eating, I was trying
the changes that you made in order to get higher.
So I just started taking, like our protein, like twice a day.
Yeah.
And then I was
the Atlas.
Yeah. The Atlas protein. Sweet. I was taking that probably about twice a day. And then like I would eat 3 to 4 meals that was like chicken, steak, those types of things. Yeah. So just like trying to get 3 to 4 meals that were like real protein.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're upping your calories like that, I had to start doing more cardio. Otherwise I would just be packing on the weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, and then also I started eating a lot more berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, like those antioxidant things.
Yeah. Which have a lot of fiber in them.
Yeah. Fiber
you can give someone that's a diabetic berries,
right,
and their blood sugar is not going to spike.
Yeah. So like the nutrients aspect to me, like I had never really thought about it. It's like in my mind growing up, it had always been the physical aspect. If you work out, you're going to gain muscle, you're going to lose fat. But I had almost completely ignored the nutritional aspect of that.
Yeah.
And in that time, just seeing like increasing my calories with the right nutrients like, that's what did it for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like diet is everything. When they say like fitness is 90% diet, like I didn't think about that very much. I ignored that. So it was just like crazy to see that shift in my personal life. Just like, okay, like eat the right foods.
Yeah. Yeah. And being aware of that, everyone goes for the quick hit. So like energy drinks, right? It's kind of the bane of, and there's a lot of really healthy energy drinks that are available now, which is great. Totally recommend them, particularly nootropics and things like that, things with electrolytes. But, an energy drink is kind of a misnomer because sugar will give you energy, but then you're going to have a crash later on. Yeah. And if you're doing something that's synthetic caffeine, along with all these other synthetic aminos, something like a Monster energy drink or a Bang or something like that, then what's happening is you're actually draining your body of nutrients because your adrenals have to compensate for that massive dose of unnatural stimulation. And this is even true of over-consuming things like coffee or even nicotine.
Right.
Those nootropics that have major benefits, they actually throttle your adrenals because coffee is highly acidic.
Yep.
And so your body has to, and if you get better quality coffees, you can reduce these things. And these are things that we talk about, but your body has to compensate for what it's doing there in the stimulant form. So this is why nutrition is critical, and stimulants and other things like that are not essential. You don't need them to survive.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the nutritional foundation correct, then they're actually, in the long run, they're not going to benefit you as much. So I really like nicotine. There's so many good benefits that are coming out about it, but getting a clean nicotine is really important. And then making sure that you understand, okay, if I'm consuming a lot of coffee and if I'm consuming a lot of nicotine that's helping me with my focus and all that kind of stuff, I have to avoid adrenal fatigue. And the way that I'm going to do that is to fill those gaps that were already there, which is minerals and B complex vitamins.
Okay.
So many guys are taking supplements like 1 or 2 B vitamins, but in foods that people ate for thousands of years, particularly grains, you were getting the whole B family. When you make bread with real yeast is the naturally, the synthesized version of B vitamins in nature that's going to give you high potency. So instead of my body being deficient in those things, which it already is, when you wake up in the morning, when you're fasted, your body has used up all of the water-soluble nutrients, particularly overnight. So that's going to be things like protein, B vitamins, antioxidants. Some antioxidants are fat-soluble, but all the water-soluble nutrients, you're really deficient when you wake up in the morning. Right. So you should fuel your body. The first thing you need to fuel your body with are those nutrients. So when I wake up, depending on what I'm doing that day, when I break my fast, breakfast, I am choosing those nutrients that I'm the most deficient in that I need right away for good operation. Yep. So that's going to be protein. I almost always take a B complex in some form for breakfast. And those are also things that really help with working out. So if you work out in the morning, those are great things that you can take and you don't even necessarily have to eat. A lot of guys ask, should I be eating food before I work out? There's a lot of questions around that. Really depends on the type of workout that you're doing. So if you're doing strength training, you can totally do that fasted.
Yeah.
And it just really depends on what your heart rate is. If you get, the studies show that if you get around 120 beats per minute and above, then your body's going to start pulling glycogen from your muscles because that's the easiest source. It's really difficult and it takes longer to get that from ketones and from fat. So if you're going to be working out, then you want to, and you're going to be doing something that's cardio or aerobic, then you should fuel before that. And I always tell guys, it's not complicated. Eat a piece of fruit.
Right.
Good fiber, good antioxidants, all kinds of different nutrients. And then it's got good sources of sugar for your body to use. Whole grains are another thing that you could do for that. Just depends on how long you're going to be working out. But a piece of fruit is the best thing to do. So get up in the morning, eat a piece of fruit first, and then have protein. And it's important the order that you eat things as well. And I talk about this in the Be Regenerated podcast, but the order of food is something that we miss in the modern world. You should always eat your fruit first, then protein, and then you should eat your carbs in general. Because of the way that those things are going to break down in your body. You don't want to eat a bunch of fruit after you've had things like meat and complex carbohydrates because the fruit is going to digest faster and it will sit on top of those things and ferment. And you're not going to get the same benefits. So eat your fruit first and eat your vegetables. If they're more starchy vegetables, things like potatoes, then that's more in the carb category. You can eat that later on. So I typically, when we sit down, my sons know if they're getting fruits and vegetables on their plate, they eat those first. We eat the salad first, we eat the fruit first, then we eat our meat, and then we eat, our whatever it is. It could be rice, it could be something like that. And it's not something to stress out about, but it helps. You'll notice a difference in your digestion. If you stop drinking water with your meals, you will have better digestion. You're not going to be diluting your hydrochloric acid in your stomach, which for men is a very common problem. A lot of guys have acid reflux and they have all these digestive issues that are just really because they have diluted their hydrochloric acid. That production goes down as you age anyways. And if you're not getting good quality protein, you might be eating a lot of meat, but you're not getting a lot of the other amino acids in other foods, then your digestive integrity is impaired. And if you don't break down food properly, if your engine of your body isn't working, then you're not going to get all the nutrients out of the food.
Wow. Yeah, I that's the fruit before thing. That's new because I always like grew up like you finish your meal with fruit, because like kind of clear the palate type of thing. Where
Yeah.
It's like, and so I never thought about that in that.
Yeah, and there's certain elements of that, like having some red wine or something like that. But in general, most cultures understand, and this actually goes back quite a ways. It's one of the better dietary trends that I've seen and I've experienced a lot of benefits from. It doesn't steer you wrong, and it's called the Fit Life protocol, which is essentially eat fruit first, the first thing when you wake up, because fruit has really good fiber that's great for your microbiome, does some of those things I was talking about. And it also satiates you. And then it's going to have a controlled release of the sugar in the fruit that's going to give you energy that's going to go like this instead of like this and then like this.
Yep.
And the fiber is going to prevent it from giving you insulin resistance issues.
Okay.
So yeah, fruit first. And you don't have to stress, again, you don't have to stress out about these things. You can mix fruit with whole grains like in like a smoothie or in oats or something like that. And your body's going to digest that just fine. But in general, meat takes a long time to digest compared to something like fruit.
Right.
You're talking about like, under an hour compared to many hours.
Yep.
So just something to be aware of.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet, man. I mean, you've given our listeners like a bunch of stuff to think about there. Like we're going to have so much, that's a bunch of applicable information. Where can we find you? Where can our listeners find you? When it comes to social media, that kind of stuff, what would you say? Hey, go here first, go there first.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you can start with our Substack. So beregenerated.substack.com.
Okay.
You can go there. And if you subscribe to that, we've got your email. You'll be on our email list. We don't send out a ton of emails. We're going to be slowly ramping that up. We've really focused our energy, I would say the last 6 months with Be Regenerated. We've had some shifts in the team and different guys are doing different things. And we focused our energy on in-person events and meetups. So we have gone to several different conferences that are in our niche to meet guys and shake hands with guys and to really build those relationships. It was important to us and to me in building Be Regenerated that the culture that we established was real life friendships and relationships. And you can only have so many of those.
Right.
But if we're not cultivating that, then the movement falls apart really quickly. You don't have a good ground game locally. And even when we come together for different conferences and things like that, if we don't actually know each other and we don't shake hands,
right?
We don't work out together and do things together. So that's why I've invested a lot of my energy during this season. I have 4 boys. It's important for me to be around my family and be at my church regularly. But I had this season where it worked out and it was good for our family for me to be able to go and do that. So moving forward, we're going to be doing less events, and we have now tasked and spent time with guys that we vetted and that we are on the same mission as them, and we know that they're competent.
Yep.
Incredible guys. I'm talking about guys like Titus, right? Just a phenomenal dude. And now these guys are doing events and meetups in their regions, in their states, and other members of the Brotherhood are coming there and they're getting on the jiu-jitsu mat. They're working on the farm together. They're doing projects. It's almost like how the Amish work together really well. And so the cool thing about this day and age is with technology combined with the ability to travel long distances and also to get guys together within a region, it's pretty amazing. So we just had our Tennessee meetup, which there were guys from 9 states that were there. Jeez. And so we said, hey, this is the Southeast region because it's encompassing a bunch of different ones. But there were dudes that are leading cohorts in Georgia, guys that want to lead cohorts in Florida, in Kentucky, multiple places in Tennessee. There was a group of guys that came over from Kavod Family Ministries. They're in North Carolina, and they're doing a bunch of these things. Some of these guys are older. I mean, we learned from them. They really poured into us that weekend. So, we've got stuff going on over here. You and I are going to a conference tomorrow, right? We're going to be hanging out with a bunch of the dudes that are part of the Brotherhood. And we hope to bring more guys into this. So our goal is to expand the fraternity. If you're simply interested in being connected with what we're doing, we now have multiple tiers. So if you go to school.com/regenmen, we'll put the links in, then that will take you to our Brotherhood. It's the Regen Men Brotherhood. And you can choose from 3 different options. We have a $10 a month tier, which gives guys access to our core training program. So there's an intro training program that was designed by Tate and Alex. Then there's a strength training program, which is basically the general strength training that most guys should be doing, which is 3 to 4 days a week, focusing on your heavy lifts with barbell. Perfect. And there's some other stuff in there too.
Yep.
And then we have our regeneration blueprint and our weekly habit tracker. And the guys in our group, what they do is they fill out the habit tracker of what they were doing of those 7 habits every day. I don't know how I went through all those, but that's clean eating, nutrition, hydration, rest, relationships, fitness, and devotions. So your time with the Lord, your time with your family, that's like phone-free time with your wife and your kids, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you're tracking those things on a daily basis, it gives you a percentage of how well you did that week. And so guys post their percentage week over week to track their progress and to get better and better. And they see consistently, I'm not doing good with sleep. I need to improve that. Consistently, I'm not lifting enough, or I'm not exercising really, or I'm really not having prayer time. I need to be doing that. Right. So it really helps you. And then you just focus on the thing that week that you were the weakest on.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yep.
So guys track that week over week. And so all of those things are available for our $10 a month tier.
Sweet.
So we decided to—
That's a lot for the $10 a month tier.
Yeah, totally. And then also our partner product discounts. So Mt Athos, 20% off within the Be Regenerated Brotherhood, exclusive discount for our guys. Yeah. You can get really good quality, the best quality performance supplements out there. And we have a ton of other partner products, other companies in different realms. We've got food, we've got supplements, we've got gear. And these are over half the companies
knickknacks,
in there.
You guys got knickknacks in there, don't you?
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, Christian
Sweet.
Company. That's the best nicotine out there.
Awesome.
The over half of the partner product companies that we have in there are actually guys that are in our Brotherhood. Yeah. So you can get to know them, which is really cool. Yeah. And we'll be interviewing more of them as time goes on. And then we have, beyond that, these are all companies that we're not just saying, hey, these are good. We don't get kickbacks from most of them. We're supporting companies that first and foremost are the best in their industry. We have looked at them. You know, I came here today and I had a tour of your guys' full facility, everything from the farm to the end production. And now we're here in the podcast studio.
Yeah.
And so I have total confidence in recommending your products to guys because I saw behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yep.
And so we're doing that with these partner product companies that we worked with. Some of them I've worked with for years, and we know the people. And they're all Christian companies and family-owned companies as well. Because if we're going to take back Christendom and take back our country, we have to stop supporting our enemies and people that hate us.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's super cool, man. I think for our listeners and just listening to this podcast, I think the one takeaway that I want guys to be thinking about is the full aspect of their lives. If you're looking at biblical masculinity, you want to be addressing it as from a holistic perspective. I mean, that's the vision of Mt Capra and Mt Athos Performance is just that longevity focused perspective that includes all of your life. If you're not good in one area, if you're unhealthy in one area, whether that's spiritual, physical, or mental, it's going to impact the rest of them. So I think if we're talking about, Cam's talking about nutrition, he's talking about fitness. He's also addressing your spiritual life, and that last one was devotion with your family. Yeah.
And there's some great content from guys in there on family devotion. What's cool about that is the platform that we use. We have 3 different components to it. We have the tracker and the partner products, and those are all in the courses section. We also have a discussion section that is way better than a Signal chat or a Discord group because it's clean, it's organized, and it's focused. The platform is also completely private. We control it. They don't steal your data and outsource that. It's really designed to help you get focused. So we have a ton of guys in there that aren't on any other social media, or maybe they're in on like X or something only. They want to protect that, but they're in a community of guys who are doing things and not just talking about things. So all of that's available at our base tier. We're able to offer this. Yeah. And then if you want to level up one from that, we have a bunch of other benefits in there. So if a guy has done some core strength training and really wants to get into other types of programs, we have a rucking program, we have progressive overload programs, we have high intensity interval training. We've got all that in there. And then we have other particular workshops we've done with guys within the Brotherhood, like breath work, mobility, and those are available in there. And we're always adding new ones. And then the highest tier that we have available, you can actually do bi-weekly group coaching calls with guys like the Iron Bison or myself, focused on one of those things I mentioned, body composition, testosterone regeneration, or the program that we're launching with Alex in the New Year's called Operation Silverback Gorilla. Who doesn't want to look like that?
Yeah, Alex is the silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
That's what he is, man. I love it. Okay. So, yeah, I think just want to wrap up here quickly. Just the holistic perspective of everything that you're talking about, and not looking at it as compartmentalized, not having that anti-Gnostic view of like where everything is the physical body matters. And if you're applying yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, you're gonna see the benefits of that. And so some actionable steps here. Go to beregenerated.com. Go check out Cameron on it. What's your Instagram?
It's Cam Generated. And then we also have the Be Regenerated Instagram as well.
Is that at Be Regenerated?
Yep.
Exactly. All right. So go check it out. Go get engaged. Get plugged in with the Brotherhood.
start listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Biblical
Listen,
nutrition.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask you,
Yes, sir.
what have you gotten out of being a part of the Brotherhood? What have been some of your favorite things?
Yeah, some of my favorite things, just because it's been the most recent, I'll talk about the summit. That's like the first thing that I've actually done that was like specifically, you guys, I've seen you at other conferences and stuff, but the summit was specifically put on by Be Regenerated. Cam organized a bunch of these events. And the most impactful thing to me was just seeing the other guys from all the different walks of life. This was like one of the major, like, just like, dang, there's other guys out here doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. Like, you can kind of get lost in your own little circle, your sphere of your friends, your church, but then you don't really see outside of that. You're like, okay, like you're excited about what's going on in your own community, but then being encouraged by the other men that are like, have the same goals as you. It's like, it's all over the country.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the most impactful things, because you see all these guys in the school app on Instagram, like, okay, Adam Staples is over there doing his thing.
Yeah.
Alex is doing his thing. But then you come together and you're like, this is in real life.
Yeah.
This is like right here, right now. I think that's a beautiful thing about Be Regenerated. I think that was the most impactful thing for me and why I love being a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fellowship time, but we had one talk that weekend, right?
Yeah.
The rest was doing things.
Yeah.
So our goal with the events is to have high caliber events where you're being challenged physically, but you're also going to be rejuvenated. And we cap it off with a war council, we like to call it. And I was really encouraged having you guys there, having you partner with us. Thanks for bringing protein for the guys. That was a blast. And also for documenting a lot of it. So all the video and everything, we really appreciate you, Johnny. It's been awesome. And my last question for you is, why should a guy consider joining the Brotherhood?
Yeah, I think that fraternity aspect is super important. I've met a lot of guys who went the whole Groiper route and the Andrew Tate route, and they just they became red pilled, but then they stayed isolated. And they stayed in that little echo chamber of like, let me develop these ideas that are against the culture, and you get some satisfaction from that. Yeah. But if you're never checked by a brotherhood, a group of guys, or like friends that you can trust, because you can have friends and they're not the type of friends that are like tell you suck.
Yeah.
They're just the type of friends that are like, yeah. They're just the friends that are like, how's it going, man?
You actually have to see someone in real life to know.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you should absolutely join the Brotherhood for the fraternity aspect. And this chapter is going to make that so much easier, because you're going to be connecting with other guys that are like where you're at. It's not something that's all going to be online, because it's super easy to just like stay online. You voice your opinions. There's talk without action. But that in-person thing that's going to come from these chapters, I think is super beneficial, because you can have yourself get checked by these other men that are like in a different walk of life from you. They may be fathers. They may be young men that have the vigor like that of a young man, that they could inspire you in that way. I think just that fraternity brotherhood aspect, all the information is great. Like, people need information. But if there's no group of guys that is going to challenge you to actually apply those things that you're learning, I think you're going to fall on your face. You're not going to commit.
Ultimately, it's not about us, right? It's about building Christendom.
Right.
It's about leaving that multi-generational legacy. So it's not about how much you're heard or how much you consume, but it's about what you actually put into action with other guys, that shield wall, right?
Yep.
And going out and routing the battle of Tours. Kicking out the invaders that hate us. The last thing I'll say along those lines is, we have social reinforcement with content, with media, and we need that. And you need it from the right channels, which is why, we consume a lot of the same stuff.
Yep.
But it's easy to see what guys are doing in a particular area, what's going on in Ogden, or what's going on in Moscow, or even some of the areas where we've done these chapter launches. I'm really blessed with the extended community that we have where we live. You guys have some awesome things that I got to see going on here today with your church and the school and the businesses. There's guys in our Brotherhood that are starting businesses together and doing different ventures. And it's really important for you to know, if you're a guy that's isolated, if you feel like I'm the only one in my church or community that's wanting to do this thing, you need to get around other guys, and you need to be regularly influenced by other men so that you can be the guy that starts that. You can do it. We're called to duplicate things. The natural tendency is to all go to that area where that thing is good. Not only is that not feasible for most people, but God wants you to win your territory. So what is your territory? Where has he placed you in your family? Sometimes you can fight by moving, but you probably have guys who are thinking along the same lines in your area.
Yeah.
And if you pray and you put yourself into a fraternity like what we have, where you can connect with those guys, we have 4 guys that are across the state of Kansas, and they're not super close to each other, but they are getting together.
Yeah.
And they're seeing what they're doing on their different farms that they have gotten from their grandparents, and they're leaving that multi-generational heritage legacy to their children. And they've got a chapter.
Yeah.
So we want to help other guys duplicate warrior burrows and to forge warrior burrows where you're at.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that's super cool. One of the things that I was encouraged by, I was talking to Alex at the summit, and he said, he was just asking me questions like, okay, so how do we get people involved with this kind of stuff? And a lot of it, so he's in Idaho. I'm here in Washington. And just that, like, we're meeting.
I'm right in between you guys.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a long distance. Yeah,
you're right in between us. But it's like, you're just like, okay, go do that thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, how do we do it? Like, we're brainstorming here together, and then it's like, go out and do it. Put it into action.
And the online brotherhood exists to give you that social reinforcement when you don't have another guy right next to you who is going to physically drag you to the gym.
Right. Yep.
You're being accountable. You're voluntarily, and you're motivated to be accountable. Yep. And then we are providing in-person events and opportunities. So we look forward to the summit next year. We're going to have to increase the price because the amount of things that we did and how awesome it was. We had to subsidize it, but it was such a good time. So much fun hanging out with you and the other brothers.
Yeah.
And we had close to 30 guys at our main event on Saturday, and we look forward to having more. And then we're doing meetups around the country, some of them in conjunction with other events like the New Christendom Games. But then also, if you are interested in growing this and meeting other guys in your area, then feel free to reach out to us. You don't have to join even the Brotherhood. You could just DM us and we'll try to get you plugged in. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, Cam. Thank you very much for coming over here today, and looking forward to the conference this weekend. It's going to be fun hanging out. And but yeah, thank you guys for joining us for this episode of the Athos Life podcast. As always, live the ascent.